Hi, welcome to DramaMeans. We're talking about the 2024 Korean BL drama, Love in the Big City. Today, drama means life, drama means love, and drama means you learn from your mistakes and you just keep going on.
And first, a little bit of a summary. A young man sets out on a journey of self-discovery and sexual expression as he navigates friendships, relationships, and love affairs over a 10-year period.
So I do have to say, this is like my bread and butter.
Well, they couldn't have designed a show more for you than this one. Like the tone, the color, the subject matter, the pacing.
Oh my god, it's everything I love in a story, in a movie, in a series. It's the way they just the filmmaking of it. It's just like my favorite type of storytelling. This is like
I mean, the only thing I'd say is that the problem with this one is that too much happens. Like, you prefer nothing happening. Just lovey-dovey times.
no, it's not all about lovey-dovey times, but I like a lot of emotional significance.
This is very indie.
It's very indie and I love it.
Like, when I looked it up online and read a little bit about different synopsis and what people were saying about it, and people calling it a K-drama, really isn't right. It is a Korean drama, but when you think of K-dramas, you think of like the studio dramas and the big romance scenes and the long looks and the big, production value and all this stuff. This is so indie. This is what we would like a premium cable drama, what we would call it here, right?
Yeah, like a HBO type thing.
Yeah, HBO or a streaming, kind of Hulu, kind of like it's just different. The tone, it plays by none of the rules that a K drama played by.
Yeah, I do remember thinking, especially the first like 4 episodes, each episode felt really long. And I kept thinking to myself, oh, I'm watching like 8 movies.
Yeah.
You know, but I think like towards the later episodes, each episode wasn't as long as the beginning episodes. I don't know, maybe it's just how I felt. I wasn't keeping track of the actual duration of each episode. But yeah, it is very indie and it's just that's just been my style ever since, like that was what I liked so much, and through, you know, film school and all that stuff. It's exactly my cup of tea. So I know that before this started airing, there has been protests in Korea, in South Korea, that they were like pleading for CJ Entertainment not to release this.
Because this is, for lack of a better term, this is going to be a mainstream BL. Like, this is going to be, had a decent budget. It had publicity behind it. It had CJ Entertainment behind it. This wasn't some thing you could kind of ignore, I think, from these groups who did not want to see a BL on their television. And am I wrong that it was a primetime show? Or
So, I actually don't know if it really aired on like a prime time. I know that CJ Entertainment decided to just release all 8 episodes at once. So
it was much more streaming straight to the consumer than on broadcast network.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they were meant to be more mainstream, and then it ended up not being. So I don't know if they actually did succumb to the protesting, but they did do an interview, both with the cast of Love in the Big City and then the author of the book, and they're like, it doesn't bother me. Like, this is actually just more publicity for the show.
Well, for sure. I mean, that's kind of the double-edged sword with a protest is you're calling attention to something that might have been under the radar otherwise, and now you can't ignore it. So there is going to be a section of the population that tunes in now just wondering what all the hubbubaloo is about, you know?
Uh-huh.
I just really wanted to say hubbubaloo.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah. So also, like, it's kind of really common in South Korea, like, to have large protests. Like, they protest everything. I remember back in 2017, I was visiting Korea, and um, there was this big protest against feminism.
Oh, okay.
There was like a large group of like monks and then some other like, men just protesting because they were having a feminist parade or like rally or something in the middle of like right outside Gyeongbokgung. It's like there's this big, I don't know how to explain it, but like you come out of the subway and then it's just this big area and it has like the big statue. um I forgot the king's name.
Oh boy.
He's the, I can't remember his name, but he's the one that created the Korean alphabet.
Okay.
Anyway, but it's his figure right there, and then it's like across the street is Gyeongbokgung. So like in that area was this giant. They were gonna have a rally there, and it was like gonna boost feminism and like feminist ideals and stuff like that. And then the day before there was a protest against it, and they're trying to shut down this rally parade thing. So it's not uncommon.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's that uncommon here in America either. I mean, you see one group has a parade and then the other group is out protesting the parade, and back and forth we go with, how divided I think, our country is, but also obviously in South Korea, how divided the country is on certain social issues. And especially this particular social issue, because there's this weird sense of morality and, moral superiority by one group looking down on another and saying, what you're doing is evil. And so, I mean, we talk about like the Proposition 8 here that was in California years ago about, we're just trying to protect the sanctity of marriage. We can't let gay people get married. That would destroy the sanctity of marriage, and how silly that is.
Yeah. Uh I do think like they're the protest groups, right? One of the names is the National Association of Parents Who Love Their Children.
Unless they're gay.
Unless they're gay, unless they don't like the things that the parents like. It's just so hypocritical and it's just ridiculous.
But it is like whenever you try to claim moral superiority, you automatically have holes punched in your argument because, we're just about love, but we hate you. Oh, we're just about decency and values, except for you can go and die. It's like, wait a minute. Are you listening to yourself talk? Because
Yeah.
they pull the same family values crap here when we talk about gay rights or trans rights or anything like that. And that's just, we're for family values. Like as if there are like people out there going, you know what we're for? Not family values. We want to screw the family up. That's our goal.
But it's also by the people who like cheat on their wives or husbands, and it's just this like they don't really care about family values.
Well, that's the joke, is the sanctity of marriage. 50% of marriages end in divorce. So what sanctity are you actually protecting? Like, let's not get off the high horse. Simmer down. And there's a couple other things I want to talk about, and this is me getting on my soapbox a little bit, because I've had a couple conversations recently with people who like to throw in my face how they don't watch TV anymore because TV has gotten so woke. Ugh, I just think the problem with TV is that it's gotten so woke. And I think if you're probably listening to this podcast, you don't fall in that, category of people who think TV has gotten super woke. But I want to give the folks out there some ammunition against people who tell you that. And here's a little bit of a news flash. TV has always been woke. Always. Entertainment is meant to start these conversations so that we can have the conversations in public. 1968 William Shatner kissed a black woman on network TV. 1972, in the TV show Maude, they talked about abortion. In 1972. Like In Living Color, Family Matters, The Cosby Show, black people on television, that was woke. And people complained about it. But also it became normal. And now we had those conversations. We got to have those conversations in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So we don't have to have them now, and we can just have a TV show with a black cast, and no one is like, oh my gosh, that's the black show. Well, it's the same thing. TV isn't more woke now than it ever has been.
Yeah, and that's why these groups have been protesting, because they don't want to normalize LGBTQIA like relationships.
Yeah.
And your lead characters and things like that. And that's what, like, they're just so scared.
And I think that's how it's always been, but I think now, because of social media, we can constantly go online and spout our beliefs at each other that everyone's actually so sensitive. You can't actually have a conversation about this. Where, like, I felt like in the 70s, you have a TV show about abortion and it gets a conversation started. Like, people in their living rooms who would have never said the word abortion to each other are now saying that word and talking about what it means and the situations surrounding it. But now it's like, oh my gosh, if I even see something I don't like on TV, I must demonize it. Oh, I can't normalize this. I must demonize it. And it's lame. And so I would say to all of those out there, it's not that TV has gotten more woke. It's that everyone has gotten a little too complainy, a little too sensitive.
Well,
oh, I'm sorry you're seeing something on TV you don't like. Sack up.
It's funny that you say about when you see something and you don't like it, you decide to demonize it. Because apparently, after this show had finished airing, KBL fans have been like shitting on Thai BLs.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, like, they've just decided that they're superior. KBLs, as everyone believes, and like culture and K entertainment has now become superior over everything else. Because now they've decided, KBL fans, that Thai BLs are irrelevant, insignificant. They only cater to fetishism.
Fetishizing? They're saying Thai BLs fetishize, I can't even say that word, but basically turn the BL genre into a fetish genre and not a true representation of LGBTQ values. So now they're using the values argument.
Exactly.
You see what you're doing there, folks? That's called being a dick.
But it's so interesting to me because, first of all, you consume it because you know what is the content, but you act as if Love in the Big City is the only KBL out there.
Yeah, I mean, people like to pretend they discover stuff.
Yeah.
And are like, oh, my thing is the thing. You're like, well, no, there are other things.
Like, totally neglecting the fact that there's been so many other KBLs before Love in the Big City that actually does have very similar, aspects and tropes as these Thai BLs.
I mean, we can compare that to, K-pop fans who think BTS invented K-pop.
That's true.
Like, yeah, okay, sure.
I'm not trying to, like, offend the armies, but I do have to say, like, without, in K-pop terms, without their predecessors, like from H.O.T. and Sotaeji and the boys, and to, like, Big Bang, to SHINee, like, those people paved and reigned, like, they paved the way for you to even know who BTS is.
Did you just leave out DJ DOC? Did you just leave out DJ DOC? I just want to be clear.
You're just showing your age now, so okay.
How dare you? Your K-pop is not better than my K-pop.
Anyway, what I'm saying is, without the Thai BLs that actually made BLs the BL genre like really popular, you don't get these, like, yes, there's always been like LGBTQIA like content. There's been like No Regret, a Korean movie, Method, another Korean movie, but those are so few and far between. But because of like the popularity of Thai BLs and then the Taiwan BLs, like His Story, and like Lovesick, that was like before the wave, like,
Yeah.
they paved that way so that there's now Korean BLs created and produced, and like, because there's a market for it. Like, for a lack of better word, it's still a business, and they're marketing it to people. Without the like demand for it, they're not going to produce as much as they do now. And then Love in the Big City probably would be overlooked because, yes, the book is an award-winning book. It doesn't mean that a producer is going to think, oh, we're going to have enough viewers for this project.
Well, it's called moving the needle. And like those early things, which maybe you look at from your high perch of 2024 and you look back and you go, oh, they didn't handle it the way that we would handle it now. That's antiquated and stupid and we should cancel it. We've talked about this before, about judging the past by your future and present, standards. Well, the needle had to be moved off of 0 first. And then it can be moved to 1 and to 2 and to 3, and then it can be moved forward. But you can't just go from 0 to 60. You have to move that needle across the spectrum to make people understand what you're saying, get some, momentum behind your movement, and then you can tell the stories you maybe want to tell. And even the most famous filmmakers will tell you they can't start their career by making their passion project. No one's greenlighting their passion project until you do a couple movies that move the needle on you as an artist. And so it's just, everyone has to kind of take a step back and go, well, here's the evolution of how this came to be. And one probably, like you say, one probably doesn't exist without the other.
Yes. But enough of this. Let's talk about the actual drama. I felt like this story is like just raw and real and super relatable. Yes, it's queer content, it's LGBTQIA content, but it's so humanistic that whatever relationship you're in and you put yourself in the character's point of view, like, you can feel every emotion. It's just so relatable. It's just life. It's just watching someone live their life.
Well, that's what I feel like sometimes we get into these niche genres where the people watching want the story to represent every part of them. And if it doesn't represent every part of them, they don't have to use their imagination, and then they don't like it. And so if you can't watch this and go, oh, that's kind of a universal relationship gripe, long distance relationships and failure to commit and public displays of affection, all the problems that every couple has had in the world. It doesn't have to mirror your relationship or even your sexual orientation exactly for you to get something out of it. And I think they do a really good job of reaching everyone if you're open-minded enough to sit down and watch the show.
I agree. So for me, I was quite upset because for me, Namgyo is like perfect. So he's the first real boyfriend, I'm gonna say, because there's been like other people he'd had kind of flingy type relationships with, but not like as serious. But there's the concentration is like 3.5 men in this drama. So I'm going to talk about Namgyo first because he's kind of the first that really shows up and they have like a true relationship. He was my first because I was looking at him in a old person's eyes.
Nice husband material. Settle down. Put a ring on that finger.
He is so like husband material. He would be the perfect partner for a mature relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? The thing is, at the time, Goyeon was not ready for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it, he was still in college, he's young, he's still experiencing life and love and all the things that life has to give him, and he's not ready to settle down so fast. And he even says it in the book, in the drama, where he realized a lot later, like too late, that Namgyo could have been like someone that he could have had a really, really long and lasting relationship with.
Which is funny because we spent so much time on this podcast talking about how like the whole first love thing is just kind of bullshit, and these ideas of, well, I was in love with you in high school and then I move away for a decade and come back and I'm still in love with you. This show actually handles it a little more realistically, which is you kind of got your chance at that first love and then you didn't seize it because you were young and you were dumb and you don't recognize that it is really first love. It feels so much more real to me than someone who's 17, 18 and goes, this is my first love and I'm going to remember them for the rest of my life and only obsess about them. You're like, really? There's a lot more life to live after high school. And so I feel like this show handled it in, like you say, a raw, in a real way. Maybe not satisfying because they're not endgame, but
And I'm sure a lot of fans watch it and like don't think that, because he is such a dweeb, but like I find that cute and like endearing.
mm-hmm.
And I see the qualities like, oh, I don't think this guy will ever be like a cheater. I don't think this guy will like forever put me first. Again, like husband material. But because like he was young and he's like, oh, well, he's not thrilling. He's not fast paced. He doesn't like go with the flow with me, like me, and he can't read the room, like things like that. A lot of that stops mattering when you're old, like me.
Mm.
So on top of that, I found it so sad when like Namgyu like died, because it was just like, oh, he's like, because deep down I'm like, oh, I wish he was like gonna be the end game, no matter like how many obstacles, how many other loves that Goyoung has, like he's gonna end up with Namgyu until like the moment where like he shows up to Namgyu's funeral, and I'm like, oh, well, that's never gonna happen.
I mean, it's sad for sure. But again, I appreciate that it can be part of his growth. And I actually appreciate he doesn't end up with a person that's, he looks back and goes, oh, that could have been the perfect husband material. It's so true to life of like, no, you let that slip through your fingers and there's no going back there. Like as filmmakers, they made it very clear he can't go back there. And so that made the show not about that open question of should he just go back? You can't go back. And there are some things in life you just can't go back and fix. And so I appreciate that part of the storytelling, even though it's definitely super sad.
Yeah. And it's true. Like you live and you learn. And I truly believe like people enter your life for a reason. Let it be for you to learn a lesson, for you to learn like how to do things in life, but also, or like, sometimes they're just here to stay and they're your best friend for life kind of thing. But like, there's always a reason. And you should take it like, if even if the experience is bad, you learn a lesson from it, and for him, I think he learned like, oh, there's more to what I want in a relationship than before. And I think he really did learn that from Namgyo.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also like that this relationship is different. Like each relationship is very, very different. None of them follow the same trajectory. And we can say like, oh, love stories, they're all the same. Romances are all the same. They just aren't. And the dynamic between the individuals is so different. And, the situation where you are as a human being is so different that you can meet one person and it's the worst timing ever. Maybe they were the perfect person for you, but it's the worst timing. Or you meet someone that maybe wasn't the perfect person, but is the perfect timing. And so it's a crapshoot, this crazy world we live in.
Yeah.
And I like how they demonstrate that with every relationship he goes through is so different than the one previous.
Yeah. So moving on to Yongsoo. I hated this guy so much. From before you figure out, everything, but from the beginning, from how he walked in the room, I'm like, this guy is so cringe and so fake and put on. I just found him super pretentious and just I couldn't stand him. And I couldn't understand why Goyoung was even interested in him. Also, it made me feel like because of the sequence, how we see it, it's almost like, oh, if this guy approaches me, I'm just going to say yes.
I mean, I think in a different show, in a different tone, this doesn't work at all. This makes you start hating your lead character. But because this is more slice of life, the mistakes we make, the comparisons of the different relationships, I think they get away with it because sometimes you're with people you shouldn't be with.
That is true. And sometimes, and I definitely feel like I was sitting there watching my best friend fall for the biggest douchebag ever, and you can't tell them that they shouldn't date this person, otherwise they'll be so mad at you and break off your friendship.
Right, you can't warn your friend they're dating a complete tool bag.
Yeah, that's how I felt. And of course I couldn't because I couldn't reach through the TV. I hated Yongsoo so much. And I know you can argue that he's a tortured soul or, he's dealing with internalized homophobia, which is true. But that doesn't mean that Goyoung had to deal with him at all. You could say Goyoung was just attracted to him, and then I just don't know why. Because even the beginning, through inner monologue and voiceover, you can kind of see how annoying that Goyoung found Yongsoo, but yet he's so drawn in to him, and I just couldn't understand it. But of course, that's people do end up with a lot of like guys or other people that they shouldn't be dating.
Well, like we say, it's a bad timing or it's bad choices. And also, in this case, sometimes people just want to be liked. Sometimes you just want to find someone that's interested in you, and that's enough. And I think that's, again, what I like about this is that each relationship doesn't start just because there's some infatuation or some, love at first sight or just spark. It's sometimes someone tells you you're pretty and you really needed to hear that you were pretty. And so you're like, hey, I'm going to hang out with you. Oh, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. But he tells me I'm pretty. You know what I mean?
True.
So I think I don't know. I just really, as annoying as that relationship would be, if that was Endgame, obviously, you'd be like, click off, done. You're an idiot as a character. But I think as a road, I kind of understand it. And I actually like what they do to the audience there. I like that they make the audience feel like a participant, like you're screaming at the TV, what are you doing? Kick this dude to the curb, please. Let's move on. We could have and should have done so much better.
Yeah. And I definitely am mad for sure that Goyoung was so affected by their breakup that he would result in drastic means. And I'm just like, no, not for that guy.
Yeah.
But I am very invested, and that's a very good job on the production. Let it be the writing or the directing or the everything. We are invested in the relationships. And you can see, like, you know, a lot of the characters are flawed because humans are flawed.
There's something psychological, though, that just only kind of occurs to me now, which is being dumped by someone you don't want that much anyway almost hurts more. You're like, wait a minute, I don't even want you, and you're dumping me? Like, I think the self loathing of us as human beings can understand when you're really in love with someone and they dump you. And you can go, I'm not good enough, and they're so perfect, and I suck. And like, you can go into all that. But when it's someone that in your inner monologue, you're saying, he's kind of annoying. There's red flags. And then they dump you. You're like, wait, a fucked up person doesn't like me. That's even worse. I don't know if that's what they were necessarily going for here, but it just occurs to me now of like how that could actually be more soul shattering than like your first love dying.
We move on to Gyoho.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is every fan's end game. Like, in their mind, this is their end game, right? We've put a lot more emphasis on their relationship compared to any of the relationships shown in the drama.
Well, this is like the true adult relationship, really. Like when you consider the ones that we've talked about already.
Yeah.
Like this is a real adult. Oh, this is the age you are when you start making life decisions.
Yeah. So, this was like the way that he had started talking about was like this is their storybook romance, you know, like they had a like sudden spark and chemistry and you know, crazy attraction, and they just meshed really well. You know, I really liked that part of it. And then it kind of shows, oh, like even when things start out like super romantic and storybook, it does die down and gets dull because life happens, and that's just how relationships work, and it can't be honeymoon phase forever.
No one has that much energy. Like it's true, it sounds sad and cynical, but no one has the infinite amount of energy to stay at honeymoon phase for 50 years. You just, there's not enough time in the day. And stress happens, and life happens. And, you know, obviously, like, even storybooks in our mind aren't even storybooks, you know, like these rose colored glasses you have looking back. Oh my gosh, the good old days, man. The good old days weren't even the good old days. Like,
Yeah. But I do really like how they showed his book version of their Thailand trip. And then later through flashback, it shows like the true, real recalling of their Thailand trip.
mm-hmm.
And like actually, like it becoming even more romantic than his romantic storybook version.
Well, because the storybook version is an embellishment. Like
Yeah.
it's what the audience wants to hear. It's the highlights, you know, it's the Facebook posts of your life. Oh my gosh, look how happy we are. We're always smiling and eating at fancy restaurants. But then the truth beneath that is more real. But then I think because it's more real, the highlights mean more. This is also the story you do write the book about.
Yeah.
Of, you know, if we were just taking the relationships we talked about so far, this is the one that he should write the story about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I like how they depicted like when they fight, it gets to a point where like they just fight and then get over it. They don't even like work to like solve all the problems anymore. Like it's just like this day to day, like, okay, we fight and then we move on. Because a lot of times I feel like relationships are like that.
Well, not every fight has a solution. Sometimes you fight because you're in a mood. Sometimes you fight because of a particular gripe you have that can't actually be solved, you know? And I think that, again, feels more real than let's sit down and work out a solution and let's write down the 10 things that we want to communicate in this moment. Sometimes you just got to get shit off your chest and then move on.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting that like I guess his name's Habibi. I'm not really sure if that's really how you say it.
The guy he meets in the hotel.
Yeah. So I do like, it's so interesting that the way they did it was like, oh, he literally thought that he might go to this hotel and he's gonna see Gilho again.
Mm-hmm.
And that in the K-drama version, it would be him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in real life version it can't possibly be that easy and coincidental.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting because I felt like they put more emphasis on Habibi than necessary, but it is a tool for him to work out his true feelings for Gyoho. I do think it's weird, like, that he would agree to go to Thailand with Habibi.
No, he wasn't doing anything else. And the guy paid for it.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
All expenses paid. I'll go to Bangkok.
I don't know. That's how people get murdered, man.
I don't know. You got your passport. It's fine. Where's your sense of adventure?
I have none. I'm a prude. I already said that before. You do not go to Thailand with a stranger that you met for one night.
Well, that aside, what I do like about this is that it does feel like this is the relationship, if you can even call it that means the least, juxtaposed to the relationship that kind of means the most.
Yes.
And I like that part of it. And I think if they would have made this relationship mean more to him, that would have been a mistake to me. That he did get to look back at those memories of the last time they were in Thailand, and he can look at them in a different way and kind of give us a peek into what really happened. But then it feels so endearing. It feels like love. And knowing that the thing he's doing right now is not love.
Yeah.
And it's not love for either of them.
Yeah.
Like, it's both what they need for the moment, maybe, or even what they want for the moment, but it's not a love story, which is kind of interesting when you're talking about love in the big city. This for sure is not a love story, this part.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, all these loves really just leads to the one love.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like there's the love, yes. I agree with it, like the true love.
Uh-huh.
But like, it feels like love when you're in it.
True.
And like, when you're in love, you may look back and go, what was I thinking? But in the moment, in the present, it feels like love. And it takes him thinking about the past, thinking about Kyoho, to go, well, that feels like love. And in this moment, I'm standing here knowing that this is very, very different. I feel like a little bit of a broken record. I just feel like they handle the different things in this show so well by showing us the contrast. And I think that's what the show does well, where normally it wouldn't really keep my attention as far as the pacing and stuff, but you really are on a journey with this guy. Like, there's just no question.
Yeah. I do have to say, it's really, I really like how they built the friendship of Mie and Goyong, because they felt like the closest possible thing, right? They are family. They are like best friends for life. They are so inseparable until they can be separated.
Mm-hmm.
And they show it like, they love each other and they're still besties, even though she gets married, they're still friends, but like, as it happens with most relationships, you kind of fade. You guys can be like the closest of friends, and then it just kind of slowly fades. And you guys, it's not that like you're not friends anymore. It's just that you see a lot less of each other, and you have your own lives to live, and you don't really like, then you have to make appointments to see each other, things like that. And And they really showcase it well when, like, it was like the last time we see him meeting up with Mie is at the bar, and Mie brings her little sister-in-law to the bar, and like the sister-in-law is kind of trying to use the lessons that she's learning from Mie to like win Go Young's heart, kind of
Right.
thing. It's like, it's just like it, you just see, and it's very like presented to you like how disconnected Mie is to Go Young now,
Mm-hmm.
and like how they were so close before, and it's just now like, oh, it's almost as if they're just acquaintances, to the fact that Go Young had to escape the situation on his own.
Yeah, their friendship had a peak, and so like it. I mean, I think most friendships probably do have a peak. Like you have your high school friends who, like, that was your peak with them, and then after high school, it's never the same ever again. Like I had friends that were really good friends in high school, and I still saw them in college, but they kind of got replaced by my college friends who had a little more in common with me. And then you move through that, you have the peak with those friends, and then you kind of get into your professional life, and it's all about like the priorities you have at that different points in your life. Doesn't mean you have uh, any ill feelings toward those people or like don't want to be friends with them. You just, again, there's only so much time in a day, and there's only so many things you can prioritize. It's just a fact of life. The people you're best friends with when you're 18 are probably not going to be your best friends in your 40s. You could still be acquaintances, you could still have lunch together, and you could still love each other. I mean, this is a different kind of love.
Yeah.
But it's the relationship's never going to be the same as it was at its peak.
Yeah. I have a best friend that I've known since kindergarten, and we still talk. And I will say she is like one of the friends that like supports me the most in everything I do. It's just I don't see a whole lot of her. First of all, we don't live in the same state, but I mean, we still talk to each other, but it does take like a lot of planning and appointment like scheduling in order for us to even have a meal together. And once we're having that meal together, like our conversation does not stop. We still keep talking and talking. But again, like life happens, and she has her life and her family, and I have mine. And it's just, it's hard. It's really hard to maintain relationships when you're older. And as we see it in this, and also with like Go Young's little friend gang, like they're not like in other K dramas or whatever dramas we're watching, where like the friends see each other every single day, and then they're always meddling in each other's like relationships and life, and things like that. In this, you just see them like, oh, they meet up when they need each other. They talk, they're gonna be there for each other, and they're like, they're going through things thick and thin, but they're not always there to like mess with their relationship. They're not going to like show up randomly. They're going to show up when you call them.
Yeah, and I think that's just the evolution of how it goes in real life. Like, we get very used to the idea of hanging out with people every day because you go to the same place every day, when you're in school, when you meet your friends and you meet those friends. And then as you go to work, and if you have a positive work environment where you're friends with people you work with, but that is friendship of convenience, why you're getting to see those people every day. And in real life, like, those friends will be there when you need them for sure, but they aren't just like all hanging out like Friends, the TV show. You know what I mean? Like, we're not seeing each other. We're not in each other's living room every night. Like, that doesn't happen. We're not roommates.
Yeah. Um, I do have to say, like, with the ending of this drama, I felt like it was the perfect ending because as we see it, I know like if it was a normal drama, and if it was like your K-drama or whatever, we want to tie a little bow around it and want a happy ending, and somehow Gyoho comes out and like he ends back up with Gyoho. Like, that's your fiction, right? But I love how they ended it where, like, he just moves on. It's like he moves out of the apartment. It's a new chapter in his life, and it's just, he's just gonna wait for whatever comes next, kind of thing. As there is no ending because he's still living his life and his life hasn't ended yet. So therefore there wouldn't be an ending.
You know what this reminds me of? The ending here, which is a movie that has nothing to do with the subject matter of this, but is Dee Dee.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just kind of like you go through your stuff with your friends and with the people who are close to you and with your family and all the stuff you go through with just to kind of, they're both kind of coming of age stories. But this just, the way I loved that Dee Dee didn't give us this sort of happy closed ended, like he's just figured out all of his problems and now he can date the girl and be the cool kid who does skateboarding videos, and he became the most famous skateboarding video guy. It's like, no, he's a stupid kid and he's going to learn from it, he's going to move on. And I thought, that's just, for the tone of this, anything else would have been a cop out.
I agree. Even like the way he left Habibi, it's just like there was no altercations, there was no struggles. It's just like almost like an enlightenment kind of moment, and I really liked that.
Well, I think there was a moment where he looks at Habibi and goes, I needed you for this moment because of what I was going through, and you needed me for this moment because you're obviously going through something. But that's it. That's all it has to be. Let's not make it more than it needs to be. And it's like, it didn't have to be a cry scene, a breakup scene. It didn't have to be in any scene. It just is, he looks at him and goes, oh yeah, you're just as broken and lost as me. And that's okay. I got to do some reflecting and you got what you needed out of it. So now we'll just move on and keep on and keeping on.
Yeah. And it does. They leave you with that, him moving out of the apartment. He's growing up a little bit more, but it has that bittersweet feeling, and it just matches the ending so well. It just feels very complete for not having an ending.
Yeah. But I think yeah, I'd agree with that.
So my rating for Love in the Big City is Around the World in 80 Days.
What? Perfection?
Perfection. For me especially. Like, again, this is like my bread and butter.
I mean, I think because it isn't really my bread and butter, but I did enjoy it, I'm tempted to go Around the World in 80 Days. I'll probably do Drinks on a Pool Deck. Just because it's not this is not made for me.
Yeah, that's true.
But like you said at the top, relatable and emotional and real. Did I find myself kind of not paying attention? Always, sure, but really well done and
well acted,
and highly, highly, highly recommended as just a show. And like you said, congrats for CJ to not buckle under the pressure and just shelve this. And so if they were planning on being it on broadcast and they didn't get to do that and had to go streaming and straight to consumer, at least it got out there and people got to see it.
Yeah. So the recommendation for this week is the 1997 Hong Kong movie directed by Wong Kar-wai. The name of the movie is called Happy Together, starring Leslie Cheung and Tony Leung. It is my absolute favorite movie. It is an LGBTQIA movie. And it's just a struggle to leave a toxic relationship. It is humanistic. It feels real. The emotions are abundant. It is, to me, this is a masterpiece. And basically Wong Kar-wai's like peak of his career in directing.
I will say, I don't think I'm exaggerating by saying this may be the best acted movie ever. Like, find me two performances that rival what these two are doing in this film. It would be very difficult, especially Tony. Like, unreal.
Yeah. So if you haven't watched Happy Together, I highly, highly, highly recommend watching this. And that is it for our show, and we will see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening.